Yeah, well, let's chat then about, what this means for the men's national team. And I think it's inevitable that within the next year and a half there are going to be new faces in there, right? That's just going to happen. No doubt about it. A lot of those younger guys, I think, players who were on the bubble, Aiden Morris is one that comes to mind just because he played yesterday. Guys like that are going to get almost, I want to say, a fair shake where it's all brand new, right? Everybody's got to earn their spot again, which I think is really good. But I also think that it comes with positives and negatives, right? So on a positive side, he's a big name and he carries a different weight in the locker room, right? You kind of know that when you're in the presence of, I'll use the term greatness, when you're in the presence of greatness or somebody with such a good aura about them, that there's just a little bit more respect and players are going to play a little bit harder and what have you. Then there's also that idea you mentioned that he's got a high pressing 4-2-3-1 sort of play out of the back, get the ball in the box, right? It's a simple, clear identity that is easy to implement when you only see a group of players a couple times a year, right? It is a really, really oversimplified way to do things when you have not only do you have players that you only see a couple times a year, but they all come from different setups, right? They all come from different places. His experience managing big personalities, getting them to finals is always nice to see, no doubt. But that kind of is the end of my okay, this is kind of good because my worries list is a little bit longer. And that's always the case with teams that I like because I can't have nice things. So firstly, we mentioned he hasn't managed in the international game yet, which is a completely different game. As much as you want to say like, yeah, he's done really well with the group that he's gotten. The last two jobs that he's had, so since 2021, have been backed by the Prince of Saudi Arabia and Todd Bowley. Like the amount of money and not in terms of just not in terms of just transfer value, but wages and stuff too. It's not insignificant, right? You can't do that with a national team. You have to figure out how to work specifically what you got. Now, that's not as big of an issue that I have because, as you mentioned, he's done that before kind of with Spurs, right? Here's my biggest kicker, right? Everybody's all hype because he's not Greg, right? He plays the same shape. 4-2-3-1 and 4-3-3 are the same shape. You're just moving your wingers higher or lower. They all have relatively the same roles and responsibilities. It's very, very likely that we're seeing something very similar in the attacking buildup. Defensively, we might be a bit more aggressive, right? Pressing high and whatever, but the attack is going to be very, very similar. I'm not like all these people are like, oh my God, we're finally rid of Greg and his 4-3-3. Like people blaming the loss to Canada yesterday because we're still playing the 4-3-3 Greg system. This is not, I mean, there are subtle differences, sure, where you're letting these players move into, and I think that'll be the positive change of it. But it's not like we're going into a 3-4-2-1 Vanny Sartini, magic formation, right? Like it's gonna be something else. And you tie that into the fact that this team isn't that good. And I know that we're all like, oh, golden generation, golden generation. You're talking about Greg not being flexible enough to change tactics. This group cannot play out of the back, like consistently gives the ball away time after time after time again. And Poch is insistent that his teams are going to play out of the back every single time. So right now we don't have a goalkeeper who can play with his feet. We have center backs who can't make a pass to save their life. Center mids who try to do too much because they don't trust their center backs. There's a whole thing that he needs to reset within a year and a half. I don't see it being like a massive change right away. I think it's going to take a lot of time and it's going to involve, as you mentioned, the replacement of a couple players. So we're gonna have to go young. We're gonna have to try new people. And like I wouldn't be shocked if our first couple of meaningful games we struggle a little bit. And the problem is those first couple of meaningful games, or do we have Gold Cup 25?
Probably, but they probably won't bring like all the usual guys. I mean, we usually rotate the squad for a Gold Cup.
Yeah, it is Gold Cup 2025. That's what it was. Well, no, we usually rotate it because they're doing something else, right? Nations League or whatever. So either way, those we'll try to. So you got Nations League too. They're all playing their qualifiers right now, but end of the day, like we're not playing against the Brazils, the Colombias that we did going into Copa America. So I don't know. I think there's not a lot of time to figure it out, and I'm not negative about it. I'm cautious about it, if that makes sense.
I get it. I get it. But I think, and you mentioned like the similar tactical shape. I think he'll probably, and you mentioned this a little bit too, change the way that they work in that shape, like how they attack and build up in that shape. And I think your worries in the back line are definitely valid, for sure. I think there's a very much lack of ability to play out of the back with who we have been currently playing with. But I like to think that nobody in the back line has a safe spot. Like like I think of a guy like Pooley, right? Like Pooley's gonna have a place in this team. Like he's not gonna sub out Pooley no matter like how he's building tactics. Like he'll find a way to get Pooley in there. I don't think the same is going to be said for anybody in the back line, including the goalkeeper. I think all those spots are going to be up for grabs. I think Poch is going to experiment with guys and whoop, pause. I think Poch is gonna I think Poch is gonna take opportunities to give people more shots in terms of the back line and bring in new faces, and he's gonna find the guys that work with his system. I don't think he's just gonna be like, like we're keeping the same shape. We got to bring Tim Ream back again. Like I definitely don't think that's the case. I think he's gonna find the people that he wants to fit his system, regardless of what team they're playing on in Europe or how much Riz or whatever the hell they say they have. Riz
You're
aura,
so hip, bro.
aura is the word. That's
You're
what it was.
so hip,
How much
bro.
aura they have. This
No,
guy
for
has so
sure.
much aura. We have to put him in the back line.
No, for sure. And that's
This
that's
is
the
why I
one
delete
thing
Twitter.
that's the one thing I'm hyped about is that it's gonna for the majority of the team. And again, everybody's like, "Oh, nobody should be safe." Anthony Robinson's safe. Christian Pulisic is safe. Right? But for the majority of the team, everything's up for grabs. And that is really exciting because you don't know what you have until you try it. And that could mean a whole bunch of different things, which is something that I think the team needs. And we talked about Greg a little bit being stale in his player choice and not really experimenting too much and that sort of stuff. So I am really interested in how he goes about this, right? How does he go about it? Is it going to be, I'm going to give everybody a run out like Nations League, Gold Cup, friendlies, whatever, and I'm going to try everybody in the pool from A to Z, and you're going to get one chance to impress me and do it, and you're great? Or is he going to try and roll out the guys that he already kind of has a thought that are going to be in his plans? I don't know. But yeah, I'm interested. One of the things I noticed with his system was the fact that he varies those wide players, the outside players in that three pack from either going forward and getting involved or pinching inside and creating inverted overloads. And that's something we didn't see a ton of with Greg. It was always wide, 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 wide. So if we're creating more central players, do we have the technical ability to be successful there? And if it's players like Gio Reyna and Christian Pulisic who start out on the wings and then come inside, would really love to see something like that. So as much as I'm cautious about it being the same old style, I want to clarify, like I'm excited that I think it will be different, but it's not going to be drastically different, and the biggest worry for me is the fact that he's huge in playing out of the back, and we've already seen that this is not a team that can do that. So who comes in, who makes that change, and on the flip side, what does he do to make those players better, right? Can he, as an individual, bring that level up just a little bit where he can run his system properly, right?